I mean, this is not gonna go over well. I am about to review a show on Netflix called Sneakerheads and how they just totally botched it. Totally botched it. And it's the reason why the public at large, the culture has disseminated into ridiculousness. I'm your boy Reggie Casual, and this is how Netflix ruined the idea of sneakerheads. All right, so those of us who came from the world of street fashion often have a sweet spot reserved in our hearts for sneakers. I certainly do. For a great many of us, sneakers is how we got into fashion in the first place, which is why it's a damn shame that the writers of Netflix try-hard show Sneakerheads is the biggest misrepresentation of the culture, full stop. Or at least the writer, the same guy who wrote Uncle Drew. Now, right when you get started with this show, it's clear that the hype version of sneakerdom was explored above all else. And that is probably the worst idea to start from. Mix in some tired stereotypes, a dash of meh comedy that doesn't really know if it wants to be slapstick or grounded, nonsensical cameos, a feminist angle that doesn't really make sense, and you're left with a show that is the epitome of doing too much. And if there's one thing that pure sneakerheads hate is the idea of trying too hard to fit in. There is next to no real sneakerhead fan service here, and the show is far better at infuriating you than making you laugh, which I think was the point. Also, every single character comes off as unlikable. And it's clear the actors are trying hard to understand why they are acting this way. Even King Bach, who is known for his ridiculousness, is trying to out-ridiculous himself in a show about sneakers. Put it this way, if the individuals in this show actually existed in real life, they would probably get smacked a whole hell of a lot of times. It's that grating. And I say this with all due respect. Presenting an Asian kid as a typical hype beast, a clueless white dude who is in the game simply for collector's aspect, but with no decent knowledge of sneakers whatsoever, a girl who is just far too connected and all about reselling, a family dude who bucks responsibility constantly for dramatic effect, and his friend, a dude with a penchant for making bad decisions, are all tropes that are as cringeworthy and predictable as they sound. It's not surprising that the only sneaker shop to be a part of this charade was Flight Club, of course, simply because the entire premise of the show is dum-da-dum, resell. And retailers, as we all know, hate resell. In fact, it's even hinted at in the show, which makes it even more strange that the show took the resell angle. It's crazy. The lack of research in a show like Sneakers is evident. It was clearly taken on the premise of hype, like I said before, and how foolish it looks from the outside world to be a hype beast, and then equating hype beasts and resellers with sneakerheads, which I might add, and listen carefully, are not the same thing. Let me go ahead and help you out, just in case you didn't know. A hypebeast is a person who buys the latest trends and sneakers based on popularity in an effort to gain recognition. For example, the celebs that get into sneakers are often in this category, which the show frequently reminds you of, I might add. Celebs just buying sneakers for ridiculous cash, which frankly would piss every sneakerhead off, but I digress. A sneakerhead is a collector of sneakers, and as a collector, the story is far more important. They would laugh at the misrepresentation provided in the Netflix show, not for the comedy, but how absolutely ridiculous the premise is. It's a wild goose chase that is somehow even more vapid than the actual hyper-consumerism in the actual real world. The show would be far better served as a drama about the effects of sneaker collectors, or maybe that should have been a cinematic documentary interviewing sneakerheads around the world. That would have been far more interesting. I don't know. Anything but what I had to slog through to warn you all about. Spoiler alert. Take this scenario. In the very second episode, the main character duo, there are two of them, are tasked by Nori, the girl character, to retrieve a specific pair of sneakers, but end up seeing a rarer pair and getting those rarer pairs instead. The guys bring the sneaks to Flight Club only to find that these sneakers were actually for a Flight Club employee, which is why they need the specific pair in the first place. Now, this could have all been thwarted had Nori just told the guys in private the sneaks are for the Flight Club employee. And look, I get it. I know it's kind of sacrilegious to give up your clientele and all, but the whole point of the wild goose chase was to recoup losses that the duo absolutely needed to get. It was annoying to watch this unfold, and even more annoying to watch the surprise reaction of so-called seasoned sneakerheads. Because real sneakerheads would have never made that blunder or even put themselves in that position in the first place. And this is where the whole concept goes off the rails. The show name drops all these limited sneakers without ever giving context to why it actually matters in the first place. And this is the problem with Hollywood's representation, or just mainstream's representation of anything coming from the culture. It has to take the most contentious and controversial elements of the culture it's portraying and put them on full blast as if that is the entirety of it. In fact, the show should have been named Resellers, as it was clearly more aimed at that element. But I also have to take a step back and realize this is where we're at. This is how the culture of street is viewed by mainstream society. Very little sophistication and bad behavior, more or less. It's all summed up in one small scene in the show. Another spoiler alert. The main character ends up going back to work at a corporate office because of all the bad decisions he made. Upon going back to the office, he looks at the shoes of all of his coworkers wearing derbies and Oxfords. He then sees a janitor in the office with a pair of Jordan 3s on. The main character gets up and immediately quits his job to get back in the game. Yeah, that's how bad it is. A janitor inspired you to leave your job. And they asked me why I do what I do. Mainly so we can be the segue between what is traditionally known as the fashion industry and street. I believe that they can be one and the same thing, coexisting peacefully and learning from each other. Something that this show decides that it's not even concerned with. This is no disrespect to the actors, more success to them, but this show wasn't it. But I'm interested in hearing your take. Did you watch the show? Do you plan to? Or what do you feel about the portrayal of street in popular culture? Let your thoughts be known in the comments. But most importantly, keep it locked right here for all of your info on international street fashion and culture from Tokyo. It's your boy, and keep it casual. Yoroshiku onegaishimasu, and I will see you guys in a minute.